r/malicious compliance husband called me fat pig, so I believed him and left. r/malicious compliance husband called me fat pig, so I believed him and left. I was folding Jake's favorite shirt, the blue one that brings out his eyes, when I heard him laughing in the kitchen. The kind of laugh that made me smile automatically, the one that used to make my heart skip when we were dating. I was about to call out and ask what was funny when I caught my name. Sarah's gotten huge since Emma was born. I swear she's gained like 40 pounds and just gave up, you know? My hands froze on the fabric. Emma was 2 years old. Dude, that's rough, came his brother Mike's voice. What are you gonna do? What can I do? I'm stuck. She doesn't work, so I'm paying for everything. And it's not like she's going anywhere looking like that. I mean, who else would want her? The laughter that followed felt like ice water in my veins. You're terrible, man. But seriously, have you talked to her about it? Are you kidding? She'd probably cry for a week. Besides, she should know. It's not like she doesn't own a mirror. I set the shirt down carefully, my hands shaking. 7 years of marriage. 2 kids. Countless nights of him telling me I was beautiful while I worried about my post-baby body, him reassuring me that he loved me exactly as I was. All lies. I tiptoed to the hallway, pressing myself against the wall. Mom said something at dinner last week too, Mike continued. About Sarah looking tired. He said it with air quotes I could hear in his voice. Yeah, well, Mom's being nice. The truth is, Sarah's let herself become a fat pig. I married a size 6, and now. Christ, I don't even know what size she wears. I stopped looking. The blood rushed so loudly in my ears I almost missed Mike's response. That's brutal, dude. It is what it is. I'm basically stuck with her until the kids are older. Can't afford 2 households, and she'd get alimony since she doesn't work. Plus, what's she gonna do? She has no skills, no job experience for the past 5 years. She needs me. I bit my lips so hard I tasted copper. Our son Tommy chose that moment to call from upstairs. Mommy. I can't find my dinosaur book. Coming, sweetheart, I called back, proud that my voice came out steady. When I passed the kitchen, both men looked up. Jake smiled, that same warm smile that used to make everything okay. Hey babe, we're just having a beer. How's your day going? I stared at him. This man who'd held my hand through 18 hours of labor with Tommy. Who'd brought me ice cream when I cried about my stretch marks. Who'd told me just last week that I was the most beautiful woman in the world. Fine, I managed. Just fine. That night, after Mike left and the kids were asleep, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Jake scrolled through his phone beside me. When he reached over and put his hand on my hip, something that used to comfort me, I had to bite back bile. Sarah? You okay? You've been quiet tonight. I turned to look at him. Really look at him. 7 years, and I'd never seen the lie in his eyes before. Jake, I said carefully, do you think I've gained weight since having Emma? What? No, babe. You're beautiful. Why would you ask that? The lie came so easily. So practiced. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. The next morning, I stood in front of our bedroom mirror in just my underwear, really looking for the first time in months. Jake was right about one thing, I wasn't the same size 6 he'd married. 2 pregnancies, years of sleepless nights, stress eating while chasing toddlers, prioritizing everyone else's needs above my own, it had all taken its toll. I was probably a size 12 now, maybe 14 in some brands. But when had I become a fat pig in his eyes? When had his I love you exactly as you are turned into performance art? Mommy, Tommy spilled juice. Emma's voice carried from downstairs, followed by Tommy's indignant protests. I threw on clothes and headed down to find orange juice spreading across the kitchen floor while my 4-year-old and 2-year-old argued over whose fault it was. Jake sat at the island, coffee in hand, scrolling through his phone. Jake, could you grab some paper towels while I get Emma changed? He didn't look up. You've got it handled. 6 months ago, I would have just cleaned it up and moved on. Now I stared at him, really seeing this dynamic for what it was. When was the last time you changed a diaper? Cleaned up a mess? Gotten up in the night when one of the kids had a nightmare? Actually, I need to get Emma into clean clothes. Can you please clean this up? He glanced up with mild irritation. Sarah, I've got to leave for work in 10 minutes. It'll take 30 seconds. Something in my tone made him look at me more carefully. After a beat, he sighed dramatically and got up. Fine. While he grudgingly cleaned the spill, I changed Emma's sticky clothes and tried to process this new reality. How long had he been complaining about me to his family? To his friends? How many gatherings had I attended where people were looking at me through the lens of his criticism? Last month's barbecue at his parents' house suddenly made sense. His mother's comment about how tired I looked. His sister's suggestion that I should do something nice for myself, like a gym membership. The way conversations seemed to pause when I walked up. They weren't being helpful. They were pitying Jake for being stuck with me. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Rachel. Asterisk coffee this afternoon? I have news. Asterisk. Asterisk can't, sorry. Kids are being crazy today. Asterisk. Asterisk bring them. Emma loves the playground next to that cafe. Asterisk. Rachel was a corporate lawyer, sharp, successful, never married by choice. We'd grown apart since I became a stay-at-home mom, and I'd always assumed it was because we just had different lives now. But suddenly, I wondered if Rachel had noticed things about my marriage that I'd been too close to see. Asterisk actually, yes. See you at 2. Asterisk. After Jake left for work, I found myself Googling things I'd never thought I'd need to know. How to document emotional abuse. Preparing for divorce with no income. Child custody rights in my state. The word abuse felt too big, too dramatic for my situation. Jake had never hit me. He'd never even raised his voice, really. He was just disappointed in me. Critical. Dismissive. But reading through website after website, I kept seeing my marriage reflected back at me. The isolation, when had I stopped seeing friends regularly? The financial control, when had I'll handle the money become you don't need to know about our finances? The erosion of self-worth, when had I started believing I was lucky he tolerated me? My hands trembled as I cleared my browser history. By the time 2 p.m. came around, I'd made a decision. I needed to know exactly where I stood, financially, legally, and emotionally. But first, I needed to test something. I needed to see if Jake would be honest with me when directly confronted. Tonight, after the kids went to bed, I was going to ask him point blank if he'd been talking about me behind my back. I had a feeling I already knew what his answer would be. The playground was busy for a Tuesday afternoon, filled with the usual mix of nannies, stay-at-home parents, and a few remote workers stealing fresh air between meetings. I watched Emma toddle toward the slide while Tommy made a beeline for the monkey bars, their joy a sharp contrast to the knot in my stomach. "You look terrible," Rachel said without preamble, settling beside me on the bench with 2 iced coffees. And I don't mean tired mom terrible. I mean actually terrible. I'd forgotten how direct my sister could be. In our family, she'd always been the one to call out uncomfortable truths while the rest of us danced around them. "Thanks, I think." "Sarah, I'm serious. When's the last time you went to dinner with friends? Or bought yourself something that wasn't for the kids or the house?" I tried to remember and came up blank. "I don't know. Things have been busy." "That's not an answer." Rachel studied me with those sharp lawyer eyes. "Are you happy?" The question hit like a physical blow. When had anyone last asked me that? When had I last asked myself? Of course I'm happy. I have 2 beautiful children, a nice house. I didn't ask about your gratitude list. I asked if you're happy. Tommy called out from the monkey bars, "Mommy, look." I waved and gave him a thumbs up, buying myself time to think. Marriage is work, Ratch. It's not all sunshine and butterflies like when we were dating. Marriage shouldn't make you disappear, either. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Jake, asterisk having drinks with a Peterson account after work. "We'll be late, asterisk." No question, no apology. Just a statement. "Let me guess," Rachel said, reading over my shoulder. "He's networking again?" "It's his job." "Sarah, stop." Her voice was gentler now. "I've been watching you for 2 years, making excuses for him. Making yourself smaller and smaller until I barely recognized my sister who used to backpack through Europe alone and tell off college professors who tried to mansplain her own research. That felt like a lifetime ago. That Sarah seemed like a different person entirely. I have responsibilities now. Kids change everything. Kids change things, yes. They shouldn't erase you completely." Emma toddled back over, holding a dandelion like it was a precious gift. "Mama. Flower. It's beautiful, baby girl." I tucked it behind her ear, and she giggled before running back to the slide. "You're a good mom," Rachel said quietly. "But what kind of partnership are you modeling for them?" The words hung in the air between us. I thought about Emma growing up, watching her father ignore her mother. Tommy learning that this was how marriages worked, one person serving, the other taking it for granted. I overheard something yesterday, I heard myself saying. Something Jake said about me. Rachel waited, not pushing, just present. He called me a fat pig. To his brother. Said he was stuck with me because I let myself go and no one else would want me. The fury that flashed across Rachel's face was immediate and fierce. That son of a bitch. I'm going to confront him tonight. Ask him directly. And when he lies to your face? Then I'll know exactly who I'm married to. Rachel pulled out her phone. I'm texting you something. Don't open it now, but when you're ready, really ready, it's the name of the best family attorney in the state. She's a friend from law school. My phone buzzed with the contact info. Jennifer Martinez, Family Law. I'm not ready for that yet. I know. But Sarah? You deserve so much more than someone who tolerates you. You deserve someone who celebrates you. As we packed up to leave, Rachel hugged me tighter than usual. Whatever happens tonight, call me after. Promise? I promised, not knowing that by morning, everything would have changed. That evening, I made Jake's favorite dinner, herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables. I even opened a bottle of wine, the good Pinot Noir we'd been saving for a special occasion. If I was going to blow up my marriage, I figured it deserved a nice meal first. The kids were unusually cooperative, eating without major incidents and actually sitting still during bath time. Tommy even let me read 2 extra chapters of his dinosaur book without protest. It felt like the universe was giving me space to focus on what needed to happen. By 8:30, both kids were asleep, and Jake was settling into his usual spot on the couch with his laptop balanced on his knees, probably answering emails or scrolling through LinkedIn. The picture of domestic tranquility. I poured myself a generous glass of wine and sat down beside him. Good dinner tonight, he said without looking up from his screen. Thanks, babe. Jake, can we talk? Something in my tone made him glance over. Sure. What's up? I took a deep breath, my heart hammering against my ribs. Yesterday, when Mike was over, I overheard part of your conversation in the kitchen. His fingers paused over the keyboard, but his expression didn't change. Okay? We talked about a lot of things. You were talking about me. About my weight. Now he closed the laptop and turned to face me fully. His face was perfectly neutral, the same expression he wore during difficult work calls. Sarah, I honestly don't remember every detail of what we discussed. You know how Mike and I are when we get together, we talk shit about everything. The deflection was so smooth, so practiced. This was a man who negotiated million-dollar deals for a living. You said I'd gotten huge since Emma was born. You called me a fat pig. Jake's eyebrows shot up in what looked like genuine surprise. What? Sarah, that's crazy. I would never say something like that about you. The gaslighting was immediate and competent. If I hadn't heard it with my own ears, I might have questioned my memory. You said you were stuck with me because I let myself go, and that no one else would want me. Jesus Christ, Sarah. He ran a hand through his hair, looking hurt and bewildered. I can't believe you think I'd say those things. Even to Mike. Especially to Mike. He was good. Really good. The wounded husband, shocked that his wife would even suggest he was capable of such cruelty. You said I should know I need to lose weight because I own a mirror. Stop. His voice was sharper now, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across his face. Recognition, maybe. Or calculation. I don't know what you think you heard, but you're wrong. And honestly, I'm a little hurt that you'd even accuse me of this. The reversal was textbook. Suddenly I was the one being unreasonable, the one causing problems in our marriage. So you're saying you've never talked to Mike about my weight? Never complained about how I look? Jake stood up, pacing to the window. When he turned back, his expression was carefully controlled. Look, maybe we've talked about health stuff. You know, how hard it is to stay in shape with little kids, how we both need to be better about eating right and exercising. But Sarah, I love you. I married you. Why would I trash talk my own wife? It was masterful. He'd acknowledged just enough truth to seem honest while completely reframing the conversation. Now it wasn't cruelty, it was concern for my health. Jake, I heard you laugh when Mike said it was rough for you. You agreed that I was fat. You're twisting this all around. His voice carried a note of frustration now, like I was being deliberately difficult. Maybe you misunderstood what you heard. Maybe you were only catching pieces of the conversation. My phone, sitting on the coffee table, lit up with a text from Rachel. How did it go? Jake's eyes followed mine to the phone. Did you talk to Rachel about this? The question felt loaded somehow. Dangerous. She's my sister. Sarah, this is between us. Marriage problems shouldn't be discussed with. What marriage problems? I interrupted. I thought I misunderstood what I heard. For the first time all evening, Jake looked genuinely caught off guard. That's when I knew Rachel had been right about everything. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Jake's mouth opened and closed twice before he found his words. I just meant, look, you're obviously upset about something. Maybe we should talk about this when you're calmer. There it was, the final piece of the puzzle. When cornered, make the woman seem hysterical. I'm perfectly calm, Jake. I'm asking you a direct question. Do you think I'm fat? He stared at me for a long moment, and I could practically see the wheels turning. Which lie would serve him best? Sarah, you've had 2 kids. Your body has changed. That's normal. That's not what I asked. Fine. Something shifted in his expression, a hardness creeping in around his eyes. Do I think you could stand to lose some weight? Maybe. Do I think you've stopped taking care of yourself the way you used to? Yes. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. The honesty was almost refreshing after the gaslighting. And you think I should be grateful that you still want me, even though I'm fat? I didn't say that. But you thought it. Jake rubbed his temples like I was giving him a headache. Sarah, what do you want me to say here? That you look exactly the same as when we met. Because that would be a lie, and you'd know it. You want me to pretend that physical attraction doesn't matter in a marriage? Because that's not realistic either. He was getting bolder now, testing how much truth I could handle. What I want is for my husband not to call me a fat pig behind my back. I never, he stopped himself, jaw clenching. You know what? Maybe I vented to my brother. Maybe I said things that came out wrong. But Jesus, Sarah, you don't exactly make it easy sometimes. I don't make what easy? This. He gestured broadly at our living room, at me, at our entire life. You walk around in the same 3 outfits, you never wear makeup anymore, you've completely given up on yourself. And then you wonder why I don't look at you the same way I used to. Each word hit like a slap. But underneath the sting, something else was building. Something that felt surprisingly like relief. So it's my fault. It's not about fault. It's about effort. When we were dating, you made an effort. Now it's like you think the ring means you can just stop trying. I thought about the last 7 years. The 3 a.m. feedings while he slept through crying babies. The endless loads of his laundry, the meals planned around his preferences, the social events organized for his career benefit. The way I'd worn makeup to the hospital during labor because I wanted to look good in our first family photos. You think I stopped trying? Look, I know being a mom is hard. Do you? I stood up, my wine glass forgotten. Do you really? Because last week when Emma had that stomach bug, who cleaned up the vomit at 2 a.m. while you slept? When Tommy had nightmares for a month straight, who slept on his floor? When your mother wanted family photos for Christmas, who spent 3 hours finding outfits for everyone and making sure we all looked perfect? That's different. That's what? Not effort? Just because it's not the kind of effort that makes your dick hard, it doesn't count. Jake's eyes widened. I never talked like that. Sweet, accommodating Sarah didn't use words like that. Sarah. No, let's finish this conversation. You think I'm fat. You think I don't try. You think you're stuck with me. What else? What other charming insights have you shared with your family about your disappointing wife? His phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from someone named Ashley, *, great meeting you tonight. Looking forward to working together, smiling face with smiling eyes, *. The timestamp showed it was sent 20 minutes ago. Who's Ashley? I asked quietly. Jake's face went pale. We're potentially working on a project together. I mentioned her earlier, the Peterson account? But he hadn't mentioned her. He'd said he was having drinks with the Peterson account. Not that he was meeting a woman named Ashley who sent flirty emojis at 9 p.m. Show me your phone. What? Sarah, that's ridiculous. Show me your phone, Jake. I'm not doing this. You're acting paranoid, and I reached for his phone. He grabbed my wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop me. Don't. We stared at each other across that single word. In 7 years of marriage, he had never physically prevented me from doing anything. Let go of me. He released my wrist immediately, but the damage was done. Sarah, you're misunderstanding. I'm going to bed. We should talk about this. No, I said, heading for the stairs. I think I understand everything perfectly now. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Jake move around downstairs, the clink of dishes, the hum of the dishwasher, the familiar sounds of him cleaning up after dinner. Sounds that used to feel like partnership but now felt like performance. My wrist still tingled where he'd grabbed it. Not bruised, barely even red, but the memory of his fingers stopping me burned like a brand. In 7 years, he'd never done that before. Or maybe he had, in smaller ways I'd learned not to see. Around midnight, Jake slipped into bed beside me. I kept my breathing steady, feigning sleep, as he settled under the covers. Sarah, he whispered. I know you're awake. I didn't respond. Look, maybe I handled tonight wrong. Maybe we both said things we didn't mean. Still nothing. That text you saw, Ashley's just a colleague. I should have mentioned her specifically, but it honestly didn't seem important. There's nothing going on. The bed shifted as he moved closer. Sarah, talk to me. Please. I rolled over to face him in the darkness. Jake, do you remember what you said when I was pregnant with Emma? When I was crying about stretch marks? What? I said lots of things. You said my body was doing something miraculous. You said every mark was proof of how strong I was. You said you'd never been more attracted to me. He was quiet for a long moment. I meant that. When did that change? Sarah. When exactly did miraculous become fat pig? The silence stretched between us like an ocean. I never called you that, he finally whispered. Yes, you did. We both know you did. He didn't deny it again. The next morning, Jake left for work early without saying goodbye. I heard him moving around at 6 a.m., shower running, coffee brewing, garage door opening. When I came downstairs with Emma, there was a bouquet of grocery store flowers on the kitchen counter and a note, I love you. Let's talk tonight. Jay. The flowers felt like an admission of guilt. Emma toddled over and pointed at the bright yellow daisies. Pretty, Mama. Yes, baby. Very pretty. But all I could think about was Ashley and her late night emoji. About Jake's hand on my wrist. About the way he'd looked at me last night, like I was the problem, the one making everything difficult. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Hi, is this Sarah? This is Jennifer Martinez. I got your information from Rachel Peterson. She said you might want to schedule a consultation? My heart hammered. Rachel had given the lawyer my name without asking. I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. Of course. But Sarah? I have an opening this afternoon if you change your mind. Sometimes it helps just to know what your options are, even if you're not ready to use them yet. Tommy bounded into the kitchen in his dinosaur pajamas. Mommy, can we have pancakes? Sure, sweetie. I covered the phone. Go pick out clothes while I finish this call. Mrs. Peterson, Jennifer continued, Rachel shared some concerns. I want you to know that consultation is confidential, no matter what you decide. And knowledge is power. After I hung up, I stood in my kitchen, the kitchen I'd organized, decorated, cleaned countless times, and felt like a stranger in my own life. The flowers sat on the counter, beautiful and meaningless. Emma tugged at my pajama pants. Hungry, Mama. I know, baby. Mommy's figuring some things out. As I mixed pancake batter, I made a decision. I was going to that consultation. Not because I was ready to leave, but because Jennifer was right. Knowledge was power. And I was tired of having none. The consultation was in a sleek downtown office that screamed expensive. I dropped the kids at my mother-in-law's house, ironic, considering what I now knew about her opinion of me, claiming I had a doctor's appointment. Jennifer Martinez was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with kind eyes and the kind of confident posture I remembered having once upon a time. Tell me what's going on, she said simply, sliding a box of tissues across her desk. I hadn't planned to cry, but something about finally saying it all out loud, the name-calling, the gaslighting, the financial control I was only now recognizing, broke something open in me. The emotional abuse is clear, Jennifer said when I finished. But I need to ask some difficult questions. Has Jake ever touched you inappropriately during arguments? Blocked your exit from a room? Thrown objects? No, nothing like that. Well, I hesitated. Last night he grabbed my wrist when I tried to look at his phone. But he didn't hurt me. Jennifer made a note. Any other instances of physical contact during conflicts? I thought back through 7 years of marriage. Sometimes when I tried to walk away from arguments, he'll put his hand on my arm. Not aggressively, just to keep me there until he's finished talking. How often would you say that happens? The question made me uncomfortable. I don't know. Maybe, every few months? It's not violent, just. Sarah, preventing someone from leaving a conversation is a form of control. The fact that you're minimizing it tells me it's probably happened more than you remember. My stomach clenched. But he's never actually hurt me. Physical abuse exists on a spectrum. It often starts with small boundary violations, grabbing, blocking, intimidating, before escalating. I left the office with a folder full of information and a sick feeling in my stomach. Jennifer had been clear, I had grounds for divorce, likely favorable custody arrangements, and potential spousal support. But she'd also warned me about something I hadn't considered. If Jake realizes you're gathering information or planning to leave, his behavior might escalate, she'd said. You need to be very careful about how you proceed. The drive home felt surreal. I was listening to Elmo sing about sharing while processing the fact that my marriage might be abusive. Emma babbled happily in her car seat while I wondered if my husband was capable of hurting me. My phone rang as I pulled into our driveway. Jake. Hey, babe. How was your day? The casual affection in his voice made my skin crawl now. Fine. Just errands. Good, good. Listen, I might be late again tonight. The Ashley project is moving faster than expected, and we need to get some documents finalized. Ashley again. How late? Probably not until after the kids are in bed. Order yourself something nice for dinner, okay? My treat. His treat. With money I had no access to, for a dinner I'd eat alone while he spent the evening with another woman. Sure. Sarah? Are you okay? You sound weird. The question felt loaded. Was I acting suspicious? Had I given something away? Just tired. Emma was fussy at the store. Poor baby. Both of you. Get some rest tonight, and we'll talk when I get home. After I hung up, I sat in my car for a long moment, watching my house, our house, like it might reveal its secrets. The red door I'd painted last spring. The flower boxes I'd planted and maintained. The life I'd built becoming a prison I was only now seeing clearly. Emma started crying in the back seat, and I realized I'd been sitting there for 10 minutes. Sorry, sweetheart. Let's go inside. But as I gathered the kids and walked toward that red door, I couldn't shake Jennifer's warning about escalation. Or the feeling that Jake already knew exactly what I was planning. That night, Jake came home at nearly midnight smelling like wine and expensive perfume. I pretended to be asleep as he moved quietly through our bedroom, but every muscle in my body was tense, hyper-aware of his presence in a way that felt completely new. When his breathing finally evened out beside me, I slipped downstairs to check his phone. He'd left it charging on the kitchen counter, something he never used to do. The gesture felt almost taunting. The screen was locked, but notifications showed 3 messages from Ashley, sent throughout the evening. The previews were cut off, but I could see fragments. Had such a great time. And, can't wait for our next. I photographed the lock screen with my own phone, hands shaking slightly. Jennifer had mentioned documenting everything, but I felt like a spy in my own home. The next morning brought our first real test. Jake was unusually attentive at breakfast, refilling my coffee, complimenting my hair, asking detailed questions about my plans for the day. The scrutiny made my skin crawl. I was thinking, he said, buttering Tommy's toast with exaggerated care, maybe we should do something special this weekend. Just the two of us. My mom could watch the kids. That sounds nice, I replied automatically, though the thought of being alone with him anywhere made my stomach twist. Good. I'll make reservations somewhere romantic. His smile was warm, loving, perfect. I feel like we've been drifting apart lately. It'll be good to reconnect. The word drifting was carefully chosen. As if the distance was mutual, natural, nobody's fault. Not the result of years of him systematically tearing down my self-worth. After he left for work, I called Rachel. He knows, I said without preamble. I don't know how, but he knows something's changed. What makes you think that? He's being too nice. Too attentive. And he wants to take me away for the weekend, which he hasn't suggested in 2 years. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Sarah, did you tell him about the consultation? Of course not. I'm not stupid. I didn't say you were. But think, did you act differently yesterday? Change your routine? Say anything that might have seemed off? I replayed the previous evening. Jake's phone call when I was driving home from Jennifer's office. Had my voice sounded strange? Had I hesitated too long before answering? Maybe. I don't know. God, Rachel, what if he's monitoring my phone? What if he knows I called you? Don't panic. Even if he suspects something, that doesn't mean he knows specifics. But Sarah. Her voice grew serious. Jennifer was right about being careful. If Jake feels threatened, if he thinks he's losing control. She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. That afternoon, while the kids napped, I created a new email address on an old tablet I'd forgotten about, hidden in my craft supplies. I forwarded myself copies of important documents, birth certificates, social security cards, the kids' medical records. Things I'd need if I had to leave quickly. The process felt surreal, like planning my own escape from a life that looked perfectly normal from the outside. Our family photos smiled down at me from the walls while I documented my husband's cruelty. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, this is Ashley from Peterson Communications. I think you may have the wrong number. Someone from your contact called asking about Jake. Just wanted to clarify, asterisk. The blood drained from my face. I hadn't called anyone about Jake. Which meant someone else had, someone using my name. I screenshotted the message and immediately called Rachel. He's checking up on me, I whispered, as if Jake might somehow hear me from his office downtown. He called Ashley pretending to be me, probably fishing for information about whether I suspected anything about whatever this is. Jesus. Sarah, this is escalating faster than we thought. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. What if he knows about Jennifer? What if he's been tracking my movements? Listen to me. Pack a bag, just basics for you and the kids. Hide it somewhere he won't look. Do you have somewhere safe you could go if you needed to leave tonight? Maybe my parents? But they're 3 hours away, and they don't know anything about. They don't need to know details. Just that you might need a place to stay temporarily. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd overheard Jake's cruel words just days ago, and realized how quickly my world had tilted off its axis. 3 days ago, my biggest worry was whether we could afford new soccer cleats for Tommy. Now I was planning escape routes from my own marriage. The sound of Emma stirring upstairs snapped me back to reality. Whatever was happening between Jake and me, I had 2 small children depending on me to keep them safe. I just wasn't sure I knew how to do that anymore. I was loading the dishwasher when I found it, a receipt tucked into Jake's pants pocket, the kind of thing I'd normally just toss without looking. But Jennifer's voice echoed in my head, document everything. Dinner at Chez Laurent. Last Tuesday. 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, chocolate souffle for 2. The same night he'd texted about client dinners running late. My hands trembled as I photographed the receipt. Chez Laurent was the restaurant where Jake had proposed 7 years ago. Where we'd celebrated every anniversary since. Our place. He'd taken Ashley to our place. Mommy, I'm hungry. Tommy's voice carried from the living room, cutting through my spiral. Coming, sweetheart. I shoved the receipt back into the pocket, my mind racing. This wasn't just an affair, it was deliberate cruelty. Every detail chosen to inflict maximum damage if I ever found out. The restaurant, the timing, probably even the same table where he'd gotten down on one knee. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake, asterisk running to grab groceries after work. Need anything special, asterisk. The domesticity of it made me want to scream. He was shopping for our family dinner while planning his next romantic evening with another woman. We're fine, I texted back, proud that my fingers weren't visibly shaking. Love you, came his immediate response. I stared at those 2 words until they lost all meaning. An hour later, while Tommy and Emma played in the backyard, I called Jennifer's office. I found a receipt, I said when she answered. He took her to the restaurant where we got engaged. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know how much that must hurt. Is this enough? For the divorce, I mean. Proof of adultery? It's helpful, but Sarah, I'm more concerned about something else. You said he's been monitoring your activities. Has anything else happened? I hesitated. This morning I couldn't find my car keys. They're always on the hook by the garage door, but they were in my purse instead. And yesterday, my laptop was open when I came downstairs. I never leave it open. Jennifer's silence stretched long enough to make me anxious. Sarah, these could be signs that Jake is searching for evidence of your plans. Some phones have tracking capabilities, and if he has access to your devices. The implication hit me like cold water. You think he knows about you? About the consultation? I think you need to assume he knows something. Which means we need to move faster than planned. After hanging up, I walked through my house seeing it differently. The laptop in the kitchen, had Jake installed monitoring software? My phone, always charging on his nightstand, was he checking my messages while I slept? The missing keys, had he copied them? Was he tracking my movements? Paranoia crept up my spine like ice water. How long had I been living in a surveillance state, too trusting to notice? When Jake came home that evening, arms full of grocery bags and wearing his most charming smile, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. Got those crackers Emma loves, he announced, pulling items from bags with theatrical enthusiasm. And that fancy cheese you mentioned wanting to try. I hadn't mentioned any cheese. We'd barely spoken this week beyond logistics. How thoughtful, I managed. Oh, and I made those dinner reservations for Saturday. 7 o'clock at Antonio's. Not Chez Laurent, I noticed. Apparently that was Ashley's place now. Perfect, I lied. As he moved around our kitchen, chattering about his day, I studied his face for cracks in the performance. When had my husband become such an accomplished actor? Or had I simply been the most gullible audience in the world? Sarah? His voice cut through my thoughts. You're staring at me funny. Just thinking about Saturday. It'll be nice to get out. His smile widened, but something calculating flickered in his eyes. It will be. Just the two of us, talking honestly about everything. The emphasis on honestly felt like a threat. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that used to make me excited about romantic dinners. Now, getting dressed felt like preparing for battle. I chose a black dress Jake had always loved, applied makeup with shaking hands, and checked my reflection 3 times before realizing I was stalling. You look beautiful, Mommy, Emma said from her car seat as we dropped the kids at Jake's parents' house. Thank you, baby girl. I kissed her forehead, breathing in her sweet scent like armor. Jake's mother barely looked at me as she took Emma's overnight bag. Have a lovely evening, she said, but her tone suggested she knew exactly what kind of evening this would be. The drive to Antonio's was filled with Jake's cheerful chatter about work, weekend plans, anything except the elephant sitting between us. I nodded and smiled, playing my part in this elaborate charade. Antonio's was dimly lit, intimate in a way that felt suffocating rather than romantic. Jake had requested a corner booth, secluded and private. Perfect for the kind of conversation I suspected was coming. Wine, he asked, already signaling the server. Let's get that Pinot you love. I didn't love Pinot. I preferred Sauvignon Blanc, something he'd somehow forgotten after 7 years of marriage. Or maybe he was thinking of Ashley's preferences. The server poured our wine, took our orders, and disappeared, leaving us alone in our shadowy corner. You know, Jake said, swirling his wine thoughtfully, I've been thinking about our conversation the other night. About the things you thought you heard. There it was. The real reason for this dinner. I've been thinking about it too, I said carefully. Good. Because I realized something, you were right to be upset. Not because I said those things, but because the fact that you could even imagine me saying them means I've failed as a husband somewhere. The manipulation was masterful. Somehow, he'd found a way to make my hurt feelings about his cruelty into his failure to make me feel secure enough. Jake. Let me finish. His hand covered mine on the table. I know I've been working too much, traveling too much. I know I haven't been as present as I should be. And maybe that's made you feel insecure about us. The wine tasted like ash in my mouth. This isn't about insecurity. Isn't it, though? His thumb stroked across my knuckles. Sarah, you're my wife. The mother of my children. Why would I ever disrespect you to my family? Because you did, I wanted to scream. Because I heard you. I know what I heard, I said quietly. Jake's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on mine. But here's what I think happened. You've been stressed, and God knows you have every right to be, with the kids and everything on your plate. You were probably half asleep, maybe only caught pieces of conversation. Your mind filled in the blanks with your worst fears. He was rewriting history in real time, and doing it so smoothly that part of me almost wanted to believe him. Maybe you should see someone, he continued, his voice gentle but insistent. A therapist. Just to talk through some of these anxieties. The suggestion hit like a slap. You think I'm crazy. I think you're exhausted and overwhelmed, and maybe you need professional help to sort through these feelings. Our appetizers arrived, interrupting the conversation. Jake smiled at the server, made small talk about the food, played the perfect husband role while systematically dismantling my sanity. There's something else, he said once we were alone again. Ashley mentioned receiving a strange call this week. Someone asking about me, claiming to be my wife. My blood turned to ice. What? I told her it must have been a wrong number, but... He studied my face carefully. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? The trap was so obvious, so carefully laid. He knew I hadn't made that call. He'd made it himself, creating evidence of my supposed paranoia. No, I whispered. Of course not. His smile was warm, understanding, terrifying. Which makes me even more worried about your state of mind lately. You know what the strangest part is? Jake continued, cutting his steak with deliberate precision. Ashley said whoever called knew details about our conversation that night. Specific details about our dinner, what we ordered, even what she was wearing. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. He was describing things that would only be in Ashley's memory, or someone who'd been there with her. But he was presenting it like evidence of my supposed breakdown. That's strange, I managed. Very strange. Almost like someone had been watching us. His eyes met mine across the table. Or maybe someone's imagination is getting the better of him, creating elaborate scenarios that feel real but aren't. The gaslighting was so sophisticated, so layered, that I felt dizzy. He was simultaneously admitting to dinner with Ashley while making me sound delusional for suspecting anything inappropriate. Jake, are you having an affair? The question hung between us like a live wire. Jake's expression cycled through surprise, hurt, and finally disappointment so convincing I almost apologized. Jesus, Sarah. Is that what this is all about? You think I'm cheating? You've been working late constantly, you smell like perfume, you took a woman to Chez Laurent. How could you possibly know where we went for dinner? His voice was sharp now, the hurt husband act slipping. Unless you've been following me? Going through my things? I realized my mistake too late. The receipt. I'd found it in his laundry, but now he'd know I'd been searching through his belongings. I saw a receipt. You went through my pockets? Jake leaned back, shaking his head with what looked like genuine disbelief. Sarah, that's really concerning behavior. It fell out when I was doing laundry. Did it? Or were you looking for evidence to support these paranoid theories you've been building? The couple at the next table glanced over at us. Jake immediately lowered his voice, the picture of a patient husband dealing with an unstable wife. Look, yes, I had dinner with Ashley at Chez Laurent. It's a business dinner, Sarah. She's a potential client worth millions to my firm. I took her somewhere impressive because that's my job. It sounded reasonable. Logical. If I hadn't overheard him calling me a fat pig, if I hadn't seen the flirty texts, I might have believed it. What about the perfume smell? She hugs goodbye. It's called being professional in client relations. Every answer came so quickly, so smoothly. Either Jake was telling the truth, or he'd anticipated every question and rehearsed his responses. And the late nights? Are you seriously asking me to account for every hour I work? Sarah, this is my career. Our mortgage, the kids' college funds, your comfortable life as a stay-at-home mom, that all depends on me maintaining these relationships. The reminder of my financial dependence felt deliberate. Calculated. I think, Jake continued, his voice gentle but firm, you should make an appointment with Dr. Peterson next week. Not because there's anything wrong with you, but because you're clearly struggling with some anxiety and trust issues that are affecting our marriage. Dr. Peterson was our family physician, and Jake's golf buddy. I don't need a doctor. I need honesty from my husband. I've been nothing but honest with you. He reached for my hand again, but this time his grip felt possessive rather than comforting. Sarah, I love you. But this behavior, going through my things, making accusations, calling my colleagues, it has to stop. The restaurant suddenly felt too warm, too small. I looked around at the other couples enjoying romantic dinners, laughing over wine, celebrating anniversaries. None of them were sitting across from someone who might be systematically destroying their reality. I want to go home, I whispered. Of course. But first, I need you to promise me something. His hand tightened on mine. Promise me you'll stop this investigation into my work relationships. Promise me you'll get some help for these anxious thoughts. I stared into his familiar brown eyes and saw a stranger looking back. Promise me, Sarah. The words felt like signing my own surrender. I promise, I heard myself say, the lie bitter on my tongue. Jake's smile returned, warm and victorious. Good. I know this has been hard on both of us, but we're going to get through it. The drive home was silent except for soft jazz on the radio, Jake humming along like we just had a lovely evening instead of him systematically dismantling my grip on reality. I stared out the passenger window, watching familiar streets blur past, and wondered how many other wives had sat in this exact spot, smiling and nodding while their husbands erased them piece by piece. When we pulled into our driveway, Jake's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I caught the flash of Ashley's name before he quickly turned the screen away. Work emergency, he said apologetically. I need to take this. Why don't you go inside and get ready for bed? I'll be up in a few minutes. Through our bedroom window, I watched him pace the driveway, phone pressed to his ear, occasionally laughing at something Ashley was saying. A work emergency at 10 p.m. on Saturday night that required laughter. I was still watching when my own phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Henderson? This is Janet from Secure Horizon Security. We've had a breach alert on your home system tonight around 8:15 p.m. while you were out. Just calling to confirm this was authorized access? My blood went cold. What kind of breach? Someone entered through the front door using a key. The system shows they were inside for approximately 20 minutes before leaving. Since you and your husband were both showing us away on your phone GPS, we wanted to verify. I hung up and ran downstairs, my heels clicking frantically on hardwood. Nothing looked disturbed in the living room, kitchen untouched, but something felt wrong. Different. My craft room. The door was closed, but I always left it cracked open for air circulation. Inside, everything appeared normal until I checked the old tablet hidden behind my fabric bins. Gone. My secret email account, the forwarded documents, the photos of receipts, everything. Even the tablet itself had vanished, leaving only a faint dust outline where it had been. Jake's laughter drifted through the window as I stood there, staring at the empty space. He was still on the phone with Ashley, probably celebrating how smoothly his evening had gone. How perfectly he'd executed his plan. The security system breach wasn't random. Jake had arranged for someone to search the house while we were at dinner. Someone who knew exactly what to look for and where to find it. My legs gave out, and I sank into my craft chair, surrounded by the remnants of hobbies I'd abandoned when they became inconvenient to Jake's schedule. Scrapbooking supplies for family memories he was systematically poisoning. Knitting needles for sweaters he'd never wear. Art supplies for paintings he'd called a waste of time when the kids need attention. How long had he been planning this? The romantic dinner wasn't reconciliation, it was a performance designed to keep me occupied while evidence of my paranoid behavior disappeared forever. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer Martinez, *, how did tonight go? Call when you can, *. I stared at the message, then quickly deleted it. If Jake was monitoring my phone, if he had access to my communications, then Jennifer was no longer safe to contact. No one was. The front door opened downstairs, followed by Jake's cheerful call, Sarah? How about some wine to cap off our perfect evening? Perfect for him, maybe. He'd successfully convinced me I was losing my mind while destroying any evidence to the contrary. I was trapped in a maze of his construction, and every exit I found led back to him. Coming. I called back, my voice steady despite everything crumbling inside. But as I stood up, smoothing my black dress and preparing to play the grateful wife role one more time, something crystallized in my chest. Something harder and colder than fear. Jake thought he'd won tonight. He had no idea what he'd actually unleashed. Chunk 13. I woke up Monday morning with perfect clarity about what needed to happen. Jake had destroyed my evidence, isolated me from my lawyer, and convinced half the people in my life that I was mentally unstable. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated exactly how smart I could be when I stopped trying to save a marriage that was already dead. Morning, beautiful, Jake said, kissing my forehead as he got dressed for work. You seem better today. More like yourself. I feel better, I replied, and for the first time in weeks, it wasn't entirely a lie. I think you were right about Saturday night. Maybe I have been letting my imagination run away with me. His smile was radiant with relief and victory. I'm so glad to hear that, babe. I hated seeing you so stressed. After he left, I fed the kids breakfast and made a phone call that would have terrified me a week ago. Henderson and Associates, this is Patricia. Hi, this is Sarah Henderson, Jake's wife. I'm planning a surprise for his birthday next month, and I was wondering if you could help me figure out his travel schedule? Patricia's voice warmed immediately. Oh, how sweet. Let me pull up his calendar. 20 minutes later, I knew exactly when Jake would be in Chicago for 3 days next week, ostensibly for the Peterson account. The same account that somehow required frequent dinners with Ashley. But more importantly, I knew when he'd be far enough away that I could disappear without him stopping me. The next step required swallowing what remained of my pride. I called Jake's mother. Oh, Sarah dear, Linda's voice carried that familiar note of condescending concern. How are you feeling? Jake mentioned you'd been having some difficulties. There it was. He'd already started building the narrative of my instability with his family. I'd been struggling, I admitted, letting my voice waver just enough. I think I need some help, but I'm embarrassed about it. I was hoping, maybe you could watch the kids for a few hours Thursday while I see someone? Of course, sweetheart. Jake will be so relieved that you're getting support. Thursday would be the perfect cover. Linda would tell Jake I was finally seeking the mental health treatment he'd been pushing for, while I was actually across town emptying our joint savings account. That afternoon, while Emma napped and Tommy was absorbed in his dinosaur books, I started phase 2. I called our bank, putting on my most helpless wife voice. Hi, this is Sarah Henderson. I'm so embarrassed, but I seem to have forgotten the PIN for our savings account, and Jake's traveling for work. Is there any way to reset it? I can help with that, Mrs. Henderson. I'll just need to verify some information. Security questions I knew by heart because I'd organized our entire financial life for 7 years. Jake's first pet, the street he grew up on, his mother's maiden name, details I'd cataloged without realizing they were weapons I might someday need. Perfect. Your new PIN will be active within 24 hours. By Wednesday evening, I had access to accounts Jake thought I knew nothing about. Emergency funds he'd hidden for our security that I was now planning to use for exactly that, my security and the kids. Jake called during his layover in Chicago, voice crackling through airport noise. How's your day going, babe? Linda said she's watching the kids tomorrow while you have an appointment? Yes, I finally made that call to Dr. Peterson like you suggested. I'm so proud of you for taking this step. It's going to help everything, I promise. The Caring Husband Act was flawless, even long distance. Jake? I let vulnerability creep into my voice. I love you. Whatever's been wrong with me lately, I want to fix it. I love you too, Sarah. More than you know. After we hung up, I stood in our kitchen, the same kitchen where this nightmare had started, and felt something like peace settle over me. Tomorrow, Jake would think his unstable wife was finally getting the help she desperately needed. Instead, I'd be taking the first concrete steps toward the door. He wanted me to believe I was crazy? Fine. Crazy enough to disappear with his children and half his assets before he even realized the game had changed. I played the perfect wife for 7 years. Time to see how good I was at playing the perfect escape artist. Thursday morning arrived with a kind of gray sky that felt appropriate for what I was about to do. I dropped the kids at Linda's house, enduring her pitying smile and unsolicited advice about taking care of myself first so I could take care of my family. Dr. Peterson is wonderful, she said, patting my arm. He helped me through my difficult time after Jake's father passed. Sometimes we just need professional perspective on our emotions. I nodded and smiled, letting her believe she was being helpful while I memorized every detail of her house. Where she kept the spare keys, which windows didn't have security contacts, how quickly I could grab my children if I needed to run. The bank was my first stop, and walking through those glass doors felt like crossing a bridge I could never uncross. The teller who'd helped me reset the PIN looked up with professional friendliness. Mrs. Henderson. How can I help you today? I need to make a withdrawal from our savings account. My voice was steady, practiced. My husband and I are surprising the kids with a vacation, and he asked me to handle the arrangements while he's traveling. She smiled at what sounded like a sweet family story. How lovely. What amount were you thinking? 15,000 should cover it. The number was exactly half of what Jake had squirreled away in the account he thought I didn't know about. Enough to establish myself and the kids, but not enough to trigger immediate fraud alerts that might reach him in Chicago. Let me process that for you. Will a cashier's check work? Actually, I prefer cash. We're dealing with some smaller vendors who prefer cash payments. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face. 15,000 in cash was unusual, but my 7 years of banking history spoke for itself. The helpful wife who handled family finances while her successful husband traveled for work. 20 minutes later, I walked out with more money than I'd personally controlled since before Tommy was born. The bills felt foreign in my hands, like evidence of a crime I hadn't committed yet. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. Text from Jake, asterisk, how's the appointment going? Proud of you for doing this, asterisk. The irony was suffocating. I was finally doing something for myself, just not what he expected. Asterisk going well. Feel like I'm seeing things more clearly already. Asterisk. Asterisk, that's my girl. Love you. Asterisk. The second stop was a storage unit across town, paid for with cash under my maiden name. I'd rented it yesterday using my old driver's license that I'd never updated after we moved. Everything Jake thought he knew about my capabilities was based on the woman I'd been, the trusting wife who asked permission and followed rules. But I'd spent 5 years managing a household budget, coordinating schedules for 4 people, and solving daily logistical puzzles. Those skills translated perfectly to planning an escape. Inside the storage unit, I placed a suitcase packed with clothes for me and the kids, copies of important documents I'd slowly gathered over the past week, and the cash wrapped in waterproof bags. Everything we'd need for the first month of our new life. My hand shook as I closed the metal door, but not from fear anymore. From something that felt surprisingly like excitement. Walking back to my car, I caught sight of myself in a storefront window. The woman reflected back looked different somehow, straighter posture, more purposeful movements. Like she was finally going somewhere instead of just existing in place. My phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Sarah Henderson? My blood went cold. Had Jake somehow discovered what I was doing? Yes? This is Detective Morrison with Metro Police. Ma'am, we've had a report of unusual account activity on one of your bank accounts. Are you somewhere safe to talk? The world tilted sideways. Jake was still in Chicago. I'd checked his location an hour ago. But somehow, someone had reported my withdrawal as suspicious activity. Yes, I'm safe. What kind of report? Someone claiming to be your husband called our fraud division, said you've been showing signs of mental instability and might be accessing accounts without authorization. Said you've been making threats about taking his children and disappearing. My knees nearly buckled. Even from Chicago, even thinking I was safely in therapy, Jake had been monitoring the bank accounts. Had probably set up alerts for any unusual activity. He was 3 steps ahead of me, just like he'd always been. Ma'am? Are you still there? I looked around the parking lot, suddenly paranoid that Jake's allies were everywhere, watching, reporting back. Yes, I'm here. But Detective Morrison? My husband is lying. Detective Morrison, my husband has been emotionally abusing me for years. He's been having an affair, calling me degrading names, and now he's trying to make me look mentally unstable so I can't leave him. The words poured out of me in the parking lot, months of suppressed truth finally seeing daylight. Morrison listened as I explained everything, the overheard conversation, the gaslighting, the surveillance of my activities. Ma'am, do you have any documentation of this abuse? My heart sank. He destroyed most of it. But detective, I recorded our conversation 2 nights ago when he admitted to talking about me behind my back. It's on my phone. Can you come to the station? And Mrs. Henderson, bring your children. If what you're telling me is true, we need to ensure their safety. An hour later, I sat in a sterile police interview room while Tommy and Emma played with toys in an adjacent family room. Detective Morrison listened to my recording of Jake's cruel admissions, watched videos I'd secretly taken of his controlling behavior, and reviewed bank records showing his hidden accounts. This paints a clear picture of financial and emotional abuse, she said. We're going to help you file for an emergency protective order. My phone rang. Jake. Don't answer, Morrison advised. But let's see what he says. The voicemail was Jake at his most manipulative. Sarah, honey, the bank called me about some concerning activity. I know you're struggling, but taking money and threatening to hurt yourself isn't the answer. Please call me so we can get you the help you need. Morrison raised her eyebrows. He's creating a narrative where you're suicidal and stealing money. Classic abuser tactic. What do I do? We're going to get you somewhere safe tonight. Tomorrow, you'll file for divorce with a lawyer who specializes in abuse cases. And Sarah? You're going to win this. 6 months later, I stood in my new apartment, small but ours, watching Emma and Tommy play in their shared bedroom. The divorce had been brutal. Jake had tried every manipulation in his playbook, claiming I was an unfit mother, painting himself as the concerned husband trying to save his mentally ill wife, even producing fake evidence of my erratic behavior. But Detective Morrison had connected me with Jennifer Martinez after all, and Jennifer was everything Rachel had promised. She presented Jake's recorded admissions, documented his affair with Ashley, and proven his financial deception to a judge who'd seen this pattern too many times to be fooled. Jake got supervised visitation and was ordered to pay substantial child support and alimony. More importantly, the court had seen through his charming facade to the controlling man underneath. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel, *dinner Sunday? I want to hear about your new job, *. I was working again, freelance marketing consulting that let me build a career around my kids' schedules. Nothing huge yet, but enough to feel like myself again. Enough to know I'd never depend on someone else's version of my worth. Mommy, look. Tommy called out, proudly showing me a drawing of our new family, just the 3 of us, but everyone was smiling. It's perfect, sweetheart. Jake had been right about one thing, I wasn't the same woman he'd married. That woman had been naive enough to believe love meant accepting whatever crumbs someone threw her way. This woman knew she deserved the whole damn cake. And for the first time in years, I was hungry enough to take it. Update, Jake recently tried to petition for increased custody. His lawyer withdrew the motion when Jennifer produced evidence of him violating the restraining order by driving past our apartment building repeatedly. Some people never learn ***. But I have. And I'm teaching my children that love should make you feel bigger, not smaller ***. That's a lesson worth everything I went through to learn.